A September night in 1966, inside an old warehouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a low, angry sound tore through the silence. A bright red Rambler Rogue flicked on its headlights in the darkness, and from beneath the hood, the brand new block of metal, still covered by an oil-stained tarp, was firing up for the very first time. It didn't sound like anything AMC had ever built before. Not timid, not restrained, but the roar of something declaring its independence. An engineer, standing beside the car, his hand still trembling with nerves, turned to his colleague and whispered, "If people hear this, they'll think we're crazy." But that madness had truly begun. To understand that secret moment, we have to place ourselves in the brutal landscape of the American automotive industry of the 1960s. This was an era when Detroit looked more like a battlefield than a marketplace. The Ford Mustang was shattering sales records, GM had unleashed the Camaro and Firebird, and Chrysler was building giant engines for the drag strip. And AMC, the smallest member of the Big Four, was being crushed day by day by its lack of budget and the economical family car image that had clung to the brand for far too long. In the middle of this horsepower war, AMC was seen as the outsider, small, timid, and too practical to dream of speed. Other companies had thousands of engineers, secret testing facilities, private proving grounds. AMC had Kenosha, a modest industrial town, a few aging factories, and a small team of engineers filled with pride. They knew they were being mocked, but they also knew one other thing. If AMC didn't create a powerful, youthful, daring V8 engine, the company would die. By 1966, the pressure had built so intensely that AMC's leadership decided to take a desperate gamble. They gave the green light to a project that ignored every risk, developing an entirely new V8 line, built on a new foundation, without reusing any of the old Nash or Rambler designs. It was unthinkable with the budget they had, but AMC believed that only a breakthrough in power could bring young buyers back into the showroom. And in the wave of speed obsession sweeping across America, from nighttime parking lots to suburban streets to unofficial races on the edges of town, AMC understood that time was running out. Young men wanted a hammer-like launch, an exhaust growl that made windshields tremble, and that feeling of victory on the highway the moment the light turned green. The engine would be called Typhoon, a name that suggested storms, a clean break from AMC's gentle past. And the centerpiece of that ambition was the AMC 343, the steel bullet Kenosha hoped would change the company's fate. Inside AMC's cramped engineering rooms, people spoke of this engine the way a poor family speaks of its eldest son. No privileges, no glamorous background, but carrying the burden of lifting the whole bloodline. The engine was born from very real people. The first was Charles "Chuck" Mashigan, a technical designer whose eyes were always shadowed from sleepless nights. Mashigan was the kind of engineer who never compromised. He hated anything good enough, and had once slammed a table over a bolt drawing that was off by 1/32 of an inch. To him, the 343 didn't just need to run, it needed to fight. Beside Mashigan was Roy Lunn, British-born, who had helped develop the GT40 for Ford before moving to AMC. Lunn arrived in Kenosha like a misplaced warrior, carrying a blend of European racing intellect and American boldness. In heated meetings, he always asked one question that silenced the room. If we're trying, why not make it the best? That question quickly became the guiding star of the Typhoon team. But the most intriguing figure was Jim Jeffords, the veteran racer who helped give the Corvette its Purple People Eater fame. Jeffords was no longer young, but he still knew which engines could live and which ones were dead the moment they were born. When he heard the first sketches of the 343, he simply nodded. "Show me this thing running at 6,000 RPM, then I'll believe." The 343 Typhoon became the center of a whirlwind of emotion, half hope, half pressure. AMC positioned it as the bridge between a gentle past and an ambitious future. It wasn't as large as the 390S or 401s that would come later, but the 343 was the first step strong enough to place AMC among the makers of true V8s. From a market standpoint, it was created to live inside the Marlin, Ambassador DPL, Rebel, and Rogue. The models AMC hoped would become new choices for young people craving excitement. But behind that was a quieter truth. If the 343 failed, leadership would cut the entire new V8 program, and AMC would continue to be seen as the company that only built cars for parents. And so, every bolt, every valve, every oil passage of the Typhoon was crafted by people who weren't just working for AMC. They were fighting for the honor of Kenosha. The engineers didn't have GM's advanced laboratories, but they had the hearts of craftsmen who knew that every engine knock echoed through the whole company. If you stand before a completely original 343 Typhoon, no repaint, no polishing, you'll see its character immediately: compact, stout, and more discreet than most V8s of its era. But don't let that modest exterior fool you. Inside is an entirely new structure, designed by AMC as a complete restart from zero, guided by one philosophy: strong, durable, and built for the future. The block was cast in iron, but had unusually thick cylinder walls, roughly 12 to 15% thicker than AMC's earlier engines. This gave it higher detonation resistance, allowing the engineering team to push timing, compression, and RPM without fearing catastrophic failure. AMC designed the oiling system in a main priority layout, rare for a smaller manufacturer, ensuring that the crankshaft and bearings stayed properly lubricated when the engine was pushed at 5,500 to 6,000 RPM. Roy Lunn called it the backbone for survival. The new cylinder heads were where the 343 truly proved itself. The wedge-style combustion chambers with well-angled valves created a clean, fast, forceful airflow. At high RPM, the sound of the 343 wasn't the heavy rumble of GM big blocks, but a frantic roar, like something trying to exceed its own limits. Jeffords once said, "The 343 breathes like it always wants one more gulp." With a Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetor, a compression ratio of up to 10.2 to 1, and a camshaft designed to optimize mid-range torque, the 343 made about 280 horsepower, a number AMC knew would make Detroit furrow its brow. But more important was how it made that power, a torque curve smooth as flowing water, pushing a Rebel or Rogue to high speed with surprising ease. Even at low RPM, the 343 never felt lazy. It pulled straight, steady, and without hesitation. However, to achieve a design that was this compact, strong, and powerful, the engineers endured many heated debates. One group wanted to reuse AMC's traditional architecture to save money, while the other, led by Lunn and Mashigan, insisted on creating an entirely new foundation. Every meeting resembled a battlefield. The budget was strangled, executives kept asking, "Why not cheaper?" And the engineers shouted back, "Cheaper won't survive against GM." Another drama unfolded as AMC prepared for power testing. Some executives feared the real numbers wouldn't be impressive enough and wanted to adjust slightly for marketing. But Jeffords slammed the table and declared, "If the 343 is weak, we fix the engine. We don't fix the numbers." That decision preserved the spirit of the whole Typhoon team and is one reason this engine is respected by enthusiasts today. In the end, the 343 Typhoon emerged into the light not just as a powerful engine, but as a symbol of AMC daring to say no to mediocrity, a rare act for a company surviving on every last dollar of its budget. Yet its fate wasn't decided by the crankshaft, the combustion chambers, or the RPM range, but by the cold numbers in a Kenosha boardroom, where financial reports always spoke louder than the roar of any engine. During 1967 to 1968, even though the 343 earned strong reviews from the press, and customers finally acknowledged that AMC had grown up in the performance war, the company's overall sales kept falling. AMC's traditional family cars no longer attracted buyers, and the image of a small, safe, economical automaker clung stubbornly to the brand, dragging down every attempt at reinvention. The simple truth, the 343 was good enough, but AMC was sinking. Forced to choose a path for survival, AMC leadership decided to pour all resources into the next generation of larger engines, the 360, 390, and later the 401, those steel punches meant to compete head-on with Detroit in the muscle car arena. In that strategy, the 343 had no place left. Not small enough to be cheap, not big enough to be dominant. The 343 was labeled the middle child that didn't fit the long-term plan. In 1969, AMC quietly killed the 343. No press release, no tribute, no sentimental farewell. Just a single line in the documentation. 343 discontinued, replaced by 360. For the engineers who had spent sleepless nights perfecting it, that was a knife to the heart. But legends never truly die. In the car enthusiast community, stories of the 343 Typhoon began to surface like shadows in old garages. People whispered that a few test versions exceeded the published output, even touching 300 horsepower on the dyno. Jeffords once drove a test Rogue fitted with an unrestricted 343 and said it threw you into the seat like a chained animal breaking loose. A few Rebel and Marlin cars, equipped with special 343s, appeared briefly in underground night races in Wisconsin. No one knew whether they came from an internal project or were simply the handiwork of AMC mechanics testing their own limits. Today, the 343 still lives in the memory of those who felt it pull from 2,500 to 5,500 RPM. Not explosive like a big block, but sharp enough to catch a driver off guard. In AMC history, it is the unnamed cornerstone, a foundation whose value the company itself forgot. And so the question lingers even now. If AMC had kept the 343 alive longer, refined it, and let it stand alongside the 360 and 390, would the V8 legacy of Kenosha have been written differently? If you love engine stories like this, those old sounds, those machines that once shook America, be sure to like the video, share it with fellow enthusiasts, and leave a comment telling me which power plant you want me to cover next. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the upcoming journeys into the golden age of American muscle.